morning, afternoon, and or evening, my sexy compatriots. This is your cup of coffee, Minty Coffee, and I'm here with the very first episode of what we're going to be calling Minty's Monty, a weekly discussion slash podcast where me and my lovely co-host will be talking about some TF2 oriented topics where hopefully we will rip each other's heads off. Here we are with my co-host. To the left, we have the delightfully daring Snooze.
The first episode. I thought this was the second.
No! It would be the third. And anyway, on the right, we have the evidently eccentric Alexa Zoderia.
My yeet meter is maximum.
Are you just going to open
This is why
with that
you're
every
banned.
time?
Exactly, yes.
You're just going to open with that every single time?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my god.
Because my yeet meter is maximum.
Yeah,
Is that meter ever at like 95%,
No,
90%?
In fact, the meter is actually pretty much broken. It's always at maximum.
Okay, so...
I should get that checked out.
So, the topic for today is going to be, should Valve give the community more control over Team Fortress 2? Now,
That was my idea, by the way.
Yeah, we all discuss ideas. Now, if I elaborate a little on that, what that actually means... In recent times, Valve's kind of lack of interaction and the game's general content drought has really left a lot of people reeling, and it's really come to the point where people are thinking, let's just outsource TF2, or let's let the community have more control. And this really sparks up a bit of a debate, because it was Snooze who brought this up, actually, and...
Hi.
I do believe Alexa is actually quite strongly pro-community, more so than both me and Snooze, and which we'll get into a bit more. But the general question comes down to, at this point, who will we trust more with TF2? Do we just want Valve to pick up the slack and keep working? Like, do we want the TF
Like
team
they will? Well,
do we want the TF team to get off their asses, or do we think the community should be given more control than just voting on which class they want to have an update? Snooze, go ahead.
I feel like TF2, the TF2 should not outsource it, because my main reason is, who would they outsource it to?
Yeah.
Really, like, okay, some community member. That's one person. I mean, granted, there is one person working on TF2 now, but then if you do that, like, you just have one community member against one, coder. Really.
Yeah. I mean, Alexa, you can chip in whenever, by the way.
The updates would be even slower than what they are now, which is once every blue moon.
Yeah.
Yes, but in all honesty, though, to kind of raise the debate about that, though, first off, I don't think there's only one person left on TF2. That's just a rumor.
Okay, fine. There's two.
Motherfuckers, swear. But the other half of that is the fact that the community, there's a wide variety of members of community who have different ideas about TF2, but there's a high number of people who are talented individuals who have been making content for this game for forever, and it's been sitting on the workshop, never implemented, never tested in, and it's really a lot of people really enjoy it. A lot of people really like the content that they put out. Go in the workshop today and you'll see a variety of weapons, war paints, maps, content updates, things for MVM. People have been making shit for MVM for ages, and there hasn't been a single community map there hasn't been a single community MVM map put in since, I believe, 2 cities. And frankly, MVM hasn't really gotten any content in general anyway. Canteen Crasher was the first time we've had a community-wide event, and even then it still never really was fully sponsored by Valve other than them implementing the badge in. So I really think that if Valve... I don't necessarily think that, full total community control, they're outsourcing this game really wouldn't work as old as it is now. But I think that as Valve would be more encouraging to basically take a vote by the community of what items get into the game on a monthly basis, then maybe what they could do, or monthly or bi-monthly or however long that they want to do in terms of period, but like on an often enough basis to where TF2 isn't constantly being content starved, they could do content packs of new weapons and new hats voted for by the community that they want in off the workshop that's been submitted that people like. So, like basically, like, let's say if you go to the workshop now and you fucking look up like a war paint that you
the first thing I see is payload race 2 tower,
Oh.
your
No, yeah,
point
no.
is
I'll get to
invalid.
that. I'll get to that.
Yeah,
Finish your point,
we'll get to
Alexa.
that. But like, you know, the like, let's say there's like a hat that you like that has like, you know, let's say it's like a sailor hat or something like that you like, and then when
God.
yeah, like, and so you can go and, you know, go vote for it, and then hopefully if enough people vote for it, it gets into the game, and you can have your sailor
Right.
hat in game.
I
But
voted
I
for
think that's
93 hats, and a total
Okay.
of
Yeah.
0 of them
Well,
have been added.
Okay, I get where you're going.
you're voting for the
Now,
wrong hats then.
I really get
I'm
where you're-
voting for
I
the
get-
good hats.
Okay, I get where you're going with this whole community workshop and all that, but there's one thing you said that really kind of rubs a different way for me. You know, there's lots of people in the TF2 community with different ideas about how TF2 should work and what would be good or bad for the game.
Isn't that-
also... Hold on. That also works against it, though. The community... The thing is, whether the TF team is unorganized or whatever, they have a one-track mind about what to do with the game. They have a consistent... they have, like, a consistent approach, and they stick to it. So it's like, whether it's good or bad, it can still be worked down relatively the same way, whereas the community... You know, you could throw together a bunch of ragtag people. You might get UEAK Crash for maps. You might get Sig Sega for programming. You might get Uncle Dane for balancing. You might get loads of different fucking people.
Uncle Team Bounce.
Exactly. And another thing, the TF team are like professional employers. The community, for the most part, are just hobbyists. There are probably some people who have proper training, but it's like... especially with the community workshop, a lot of it, yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there, but a lot of it's crap. A lot of it's just crap.
CTF2 Fort Flooded, Super Mario 64, PLR2 Tower.
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
Billions of versus Sex and Tail maps.
Don't get me wrong. The importance of shit content is to make the good content stand out more. But like, there's loads of weapon models and whatever on there that have balanced stats that are stats that are argued over relentlessly because people just can't agree on what would make a weapon good or bad, and that's something I feel is really integral to why I don't think the community is as trustworthy as people think. Don't get me wrong, there are standouts, but in general, I just want the TF team to step up their game, but I don't think the community should have more control over just being told stuff. We should get more interaction, but also the fact that I liked the being able to vote for Pyro or Heavy, because that was a way of saying, hey, we'll give you this, but which would you like first? I think that's the fairest compromise we've had, because I think giving the community more control than that would harm the game.
I feel like since it's TF2, TF2 came from a community, really. So like TF2 came from a mod from Quake. I thought it was Quake.
Oh, that's Team Fortress Classic.
What?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, same thing. It came from a mod from Quake, so it was made by a community. Yes, but that was when 90s, somewhere around there.
I think the original TF2 was like 98.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 98 around ish. It was made off a Quake mod, basically.
With TF2 being older than half the people playing it, it's because like TF2 is built upon 14-year-old code, as we said, and now that someone's gonna get mad because I said that, but the thing is that like the people who like I don't think people really know how difficult it is to code with 14-year-old code, because like you say that they do have experience in coding, yes, but they don't have experience in TF2 coding, I don't think. And people say like, yes, sure they can.
The current TF team members you're referring to?
No, I'm talking about the community right now.
Yeah.
So they can make good models, they can make good maps, yes.
But they can't code them.
They can't code them into the game, really. So that's when, like, okay, you may have one good coder in the community, 2, 3, then you get the same problem Valve has right now. They have a gazillion artists, but they have like 1, 2, 3 coders.
Exactly.
Really.
Like the whole TF team is like 80% like fucking comic workers, and even the fucking next comic is taking longer than Jungle Inferno.
It's been a year.
Yeah, that's a different point, but yeah, like I really don't know. I feel like the community is given way too much
Credit?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I'm not saying this community hasn't been good for the game. It absolutely has. If this game didn't have such a dedicated community, it wouldn't be alive. But at the same time, I don't think giving the community direct control by outsourcing or anything like that would be beneficial. Okay.
And here's the thing about outsourcing the game. That could, like, I'm not saying it will be, but we've seen this with other games in the past, how if it gets outsourced, then, you know, the community is much easier to sway than like an actual development team. So, like, a bad change could just be, like, or a good change for that matter, could be instantly, you know, reverted and stuff like that. And just over and over again. With Valve, they make a change, and most of the time they stick with it. And while they've done bad changes in the past, but, like, they are sticking with that, and if they just kept on reverting it depending on whose side is louder, like, oh, I want the ambassadors changed, or like, and then okay, we'll revert it, and then they revert. Oh, the ambassador's too hard to use, and stuff like that. And then you got the weird middle guy who's like, oh, the ambassador's way too hard to use, and it encourages bad people. It's like, what? That's a real thing I've heard.
All right, so before we move on to talking about different updates, anyone else, anything last to add? Alexa?
I still frankly think that if Valve would sponsor more, I guess, community packs, we feel a little bit less, you know, whatever. And also, I feel like there should be a lot more engagement with Valve, with the community.
Yeah, that's a given.
In regards to the fucking weapon balances thing, because like you said, you know, sometimes they'll make a change and they'll stick with it, but then they don't really properly gauge the community's reaction to this change and how much that change influences the use of the weapon. You know, Valve does keep a statistic of every weapon that's used. Yes, they do actually. That's why they gave the Your Eternal Reward the buff that they did, because it was like the second most. It was like the least used knife out of all the spy melee.
The Wonka Prick was the least used.
Or the Wonka Prick, yeah.
And when they released the balance changes pre-Jungle Inferno, they said specifically the panic attack is like the least used weapon in the game, despite the fact that people somehow think the pre-rework was fun, and yet it was the least used. But, you know,
That's because Xenomite made a video about it.
But
remember him.
Just kidding, Xeno. Love you, Betty. All right, go on, Alexa, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, but like what I was trying to say was, the fact of the matter is, though, with these balance updates, is that sometimes Valve makes changes, and those changes end up not being a good idea. Tough break, positionator. And then there's no address from Valve for a long while. And, you know, nothing's evidently done about it for the longest while, and people end up suffering, and the game ends up suffering because of that.
But do you really think if it were community members that were handling it, that balance changes would get reverted or dealt with quicker or more efficiently?
I do think that would be, because if Valve had a better idea of really what the community... Yes, I do, because here's the thing. You have not everybody plays competitive. Balancing at the highest level of play is an okay thing. It's an okay thing to do if your game is based on being competitive in nature. But TF2 was never a competitive game at its start. It was a quirky FPS shooter that was team-based and class-based at its start. And now that it's become a more modern thing, it only had a competitive scene developed because of its community. And even so, there's really not that... Hang on now. There's really not that many people compared to people who play it casually, you know, that really actually play it competitively, that really play it like a professional competitive scene. Now, I'm not saying that the people who play it competitively have no voice in their say. I'm just saying that it's a bad idea to balance things competitively, or try to balance things competitively, because of the fact that, you know, competitive people, regardless of how a weapon is balanced, are going to find a way to either break or make that weapon work in any situation regardless. So any balance change that you make in that regard and with that intention really is not going to afford you much in terms of actually balancing the weapon in terms of competitive play. There's still a variety of weapons in competitive play that are still banned regardless of whether or not they're being worked, because of how the weapons work and because of how they function. Not because, you know, oh, they're unbalanced this way and they're imbalanced that. Oh, and this because this weapon does random crits and this weapon does none. You know, it's because of the way the mechanics work in general, not because of the fact that, oh, this weapon has, you know, fucking 20% firing speed boost or whatever, so it's obviously broken.
If I could just cut in on that also because that's we don't want to delve too much into that whole casual con discussion, but
yeah,
your argument about like you know, how it shouldn't be balanced competitively because the competitive community is so much smaller, doesn't that kind of feed into the whole community's kind of, you know, segregated though, like how the community
it is, but that's why I feel like there should be better engagement by Valve into the community, because they're wanting to branch these two together.
Hold on.
All right, go on.
Hold on.
Right,
you said people. There's not a lot of people who play competitive, right?
Yes, but there's still
no. Shut up. There are 32 platinum teams in North America in Highlander. That's 9 times 32 in platinum and NA. Yeah. So there are 38 teams in Euro platinum.
Yes, that's nearly 320.
There are 9 teams in gold. And there are in NA. There's none in EU. There are 63 teams Highlander in silver in NA.
So
there are 33. Shut up. There are 33 in Euro.
Damn.
In Steel, there are 109 Highlander teams.
Yes, I'm
9 times 109. There are a ton of people playing.
I'm aware there's a variety of people that play competitive. I'm not saying that it's, you know, a ridiculously small community. I'm just saying that a majority of the players that play TF2 in general play a casual TF2. They're not playing competitive TF2. They're playing casual TF2.
Yeah, but
if you balance for a if you balance for a low common denominator, aka the people who play 2-4, or at the very most, like, oh, I play Snake Water on TF2 casual. Cool, you're bad at the game.
Let's say I'm never saying balance at the lowest common denominator of people. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is I don't think it's a good idea to balance things competitively or competitively or away, because of the fact that, you know, there's a lot of characteristics about competitive that casual play doesn't have, and the two of them behave very different. So I'm not going to get into that whole... I'm not going to get into the whole casual competitive thing.
Let's cut it there, because we're going way too far into that. But it still comes back to that point of the community itself.
I'm still right.
Yeah, if there was better engagement by Valve with the community,
we all agree on that.
We all agree. Balance changes, there would probably be better ways to balance a weapon to appease both parties.
We agree that there should be more interaction with the community, but I don't agree that the community should have more like direct control over said balance changes. Go on, Snooze.
Like those teams I listed are, you know, like that's just UGC. Like, okay, the community that's good at the game, aka like, let's say higher in ETF12, there are, let's see, 5 or 6 teams in Premiership, 5 teams in Div 1, 6 teams in Div 2. So, and all across the world, really. And if you balance for the lowest people, or not lowest, but you get what I mean, people who just play casual, you're not going to appease the people who play like actual competitive, because if you balance for like pubs, like, okay, 12v12, if you balance for 12v12, that's gonna seriously muck up something with half the players. 6v6, if you balance for 6v6, you're going to mess up pubs. If you balance for, like, I feel like you should balance for Highlander, because it's a good balance between sixes and puds. Don't even bring up Prolander. That's a meme league.
But yeah, that actually does feed into it in a way. Like, the balancing around the higher skill gap, I feel like, is a better way for Valve to handle TF2. But like, let's move away from this because I think we're straying off into that different topic a bit much. How far are we in? We're about 20 minutes in, but it doesn't matter how far I get. As long as we're under an hour, it's basically fine. So now we're gonna we each have a Valve and a community update in stocked up in our minds, which we're gonna throw in. We're gonna sort of talk about for a bit, and then we'll sort of chalk up. Do we think Valve or community updates in general have been of a higher quality? And I'm gonna start us off with the good old gunmetal update, which Snooze likes to aptly call the Wrath of the Lich King of Team Fortress 2. That being the apotheosis of bringing Team Fortress 2 into the modern age. And basically, at least in my opinion... Oh, wait, I just used a shitty qualifier. Gunmetal is, quite frankly, the best update in recent times, I would say, if we're talking overall quality. I would put it above most updates since 2013-12 at least. Gunmetal, of course, introduced skins. You know, that was one of the most controversial things about it. Valve quality skins have always been a bit debatable, but
who cares about skins?
Exactly.
Like skins won't impact the game at all.
I don't feel like
so
skins
I don't feel like the
themselves
point of getting mad over them.
Exactly. I don't feel like skins themselves are even that much of a problem. And then we got Powerhouse, debated map. I actually really enjoy it, even if it's I'll agree it's not very well designed. Borneo, great payload map. Suijin is an okay Koth map, but before the fix to make snipers not be able to peek to the enemy spawn, it was just broken.
You can still do that, by the way.
Cue video of Trevingle hitting a Huntsman headshot from across the map.
Shout out to Travi. We finally got Snowplow,
like
even though that should have come and ended the line. They added the weapon pickup mechanic, which was really It's interesting, but it's been really underused.
I'm honestly not going to lie. That was one of my favorite things about fucking Gunmetal, because I literally did a whole thing one time on Upward where I basically just grabbed a cow mangler I got off the ground from a soldier I killed, and I disabled an engine nest with the all fire, and we pushed.
Here's what I'm oh my god.
Is that a dog?
Yes.
Dog.
So okay, so it's okay. Shut up. That goes for both of you. And all three of you. Shut up. So
I'll edit that. Don't worry.
I lost my.
Alright, Gunmetal. If I can just go over the balance changes, then we'll. Talk
Yes.
about
Hold on. Okay.
Cool.
The weapon pickup system. I feel like that could be used a lot more with this happened to me once. I was playing engineer, and I was stuck in a really weird spot, and then an engineer with a what's the one that teleports you? Eureka effect.
Eureka effect.
Oh, so he picked up his wrench and teleported away.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. It's like
but
really
it's
situational.
Extremely underused. Yeah. And I think they nerfed it with Meet Your Match.
I'm not sure.
No, they
With
actually
medic?
they buffed it. They buffed it with Meet Your Match. They fucking buffed the shit out of the Eureka effect. It's actually
No.
viable now.
I'm talking about with weapon pickups with medic. You can't Ubercharge is lost over time on medic. So basically, so like it'll decay like rapidly on it. So you won't if you kill a medic, it'll end up like losing it. Basically like it pops to Uber on the gun while it's sitting on the ground, so it goes through to charge like really quickly. Yeah, I feel like that's way too fast for it to go.
So okay, and then Gunmetal had I think a great line of balance changes. I think it's probably one of the most consistently that's not a great way to put it. Probably had the strongest list of balance changes of most recent updates. Random damage spread being off by default. That was a great fucking change. Brought Spy receiving 20% less damage while he's clocked.
But how about the best weapon change? Spy no longer smacks himself in the face with a revolver.
Jesus. Enforcer giving you damage, bonus damage while undisguised. I missed that thing.
I miss that stat to this day.
The really interesting
I like it how two letters just made a weapon completely useless.
Yeah,
Jesus
exactly.
Christ. Mini sentries being repairable, the Jag actually being fixed, the pocket pistol being a that was the worst. Oh, that was one of the bad ones actually. The old pocket pistol. The airstrike
How about the
better.
kunai? I really like the kunai change who happened.
Yeah, yeah. So that was when the black box was nerfed into what it is now actually as well. And so you couldn't get like massive health on hit. It was up to 20 per attack. But overall, I really think gunmetal was probably the strongest Valve update we've ever had. And presumably, because when was that update? It was like, I believe,
2015.
Yeah, not
June the 2nd, 2015.
So
July 2nd.
Only
July 2nd?
Yeah, only
Oh,
a
yeah,
few
that's
years ago. Presumably, with roughly the same size TF team we have now. I think that's fair to say. I wouldn't. It probably wasn't that much bigger.
I mean, it was a substantial. It was a substantial update. I'll give it that much.
Yeah.
But it still really wasn't as big as probably like the whole like Uber update or maybe the more substantial older update.
Well, yeah, but we'll get. I think someone had Uber update, but I can't remember. We'll get to that though, because Uber update was a lot older when the team was still a lot bigger, and that brought the free to play update. We all know that was fucking massive. Yeah, that helps the game. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not always on Valve's side, and I'm not very pro Valve at all, but the gunmetal update is to me a really good example of how when they get shit right, they get shit proper right. They know what they're doing. It's just a matter of actually doing it, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else to talk about on gunmetal?
Not really. Honestly.
Okay. And then,
I mean, unless you want to bring up the Dead Ringer, but still.
No.
Let's save Snooze's sanity. Okay, and then my community update, of course, we had good old Pyromania back in June 27th of 2012. The good old
Bloody hell.
releasing of the Meet the Pyro, the final Meet the Team short. This was mostly a community update because of day 2, being when we got Scout's Public Enemy set, the Dumpster Diver set for Soldier, and the Urban Professional set for Sniper, as well as the Scorch Shot for Pyro, even though back then it was kind of terrible. All these weapons on their releases were kind of mixed. The old Babyface's blaster was really hated, even though I don't see the reason. The old pocket pistol was an alright health increase, but it was just kind of there. The Beggar's Bazooka was always memey. Like, it wasn't really good for serious play, but it was
still a horrible weapon.
Yeah. The Heatmaker, I never really saw the appeal, and the Carbine's always just been shit. The old Scorch Shot was shit. In general, that old community update, I felt, was pretty bad. If we're talking about the weapons, which of course is the main thing of the update. If we're talking the Valve parts, which is Meet the Pyro, then yeah, best update fucking ever. Oh, God. Okay.
Don't worry. It added SD Doomsday.
Hey, I like that map. But anyway, getting off topic. Yeah, the community really. Well, I mean, would Valve have chosen the stats?
Did they?
Probably.
I think they did.
Valve pretty much chooses the stats for most of their updates anyway.
Yeah, that's in fairness, but still, it's like those weapons. I don't know. I mean, for what it being one of the first community updates, I think one of the first, like mainly community content, I just felt it was pretty weak.
Yeah.
And actually, it's a bad thing for Valve as well, because I feel like Valve doesn't know what to do with community content that it takes on board half the time.
This is a true statement.
Yeah. Anything else to say, anyone on Pyromania?
Not really.
Yeah, those are pretty
I
small
do
ones.
like I really wish it would have added more in terms of Pyromania. I really wish it would have added more like Pyroland stuff to it. Like maybe like eventually making it to where Pyroland weapons were visible outside of Pyroland in some way, shape, or form. I thought it was kind of like a little dumb that you had to waste the Pyroland goggles as a equip slot for cosmetic in order to be able to see that.
Rainblower and Shot, that's about it. But yeah, Gunmetal update, great Valve update, Pyromania update, bad Valve update technically, with bring and showing how Valve doesn't know what to do with community content, as well as I feel the community content itself was pretty mediocre. The only weapon really from that I loved, like mainly because of what it is now, is the Scorch Shot. because I've always loved the concept of it, but that's beside the point. Let's move on to Snooze's updates, because I feel yours will be a lot more to talk about. What's your Valve update?
The Gold Rush update.
Oh, the first update.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it added the best, quotation marks, you know, game mode, payload. Like,
yeah.
And it added items, you know, which...
Yeah.
Items!
Yeah,
so...
that was when we finally went away from having only stock weapons, wasn't it? Jesus Christ. Yeah. Fucking hell. Like, what did we get? The Uber Saw.
April 29th, 2008.
Blood Salga.
We got the legendary fucking crit saw for the medic. I guess nobody ever Uber saw that one coming, huh?
Kill yourself. So my...
And it hasn't even been changed since. 25% Uber charge on hit, 20% slow fire.
It really hasn't.
The Uber saw never got changed.
Yeah, and it's there. I suppose it's because of that you know it's literally like the top tier meta fucking thing for it. You know, I kind of hate that though, because like you know there's a lot of good viable alternatives. It's just completely outshined by the Uber saw. Like why bother trying to wait and get like extra health regeneration from the amputator, or maybe you know collect Uber or be able to save Uber charge on death with a Vitasaw, where you can just smack somebody in the face for a high potential chance at a random crit and get 25 Uber in the process.
You shouldn't have to balance around random crits, because you know the random and you know
like I'm
fine,
saying,
if anything, the previous podcast was something to say about that one.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm honestly not gonna lie. You might see the Uber Saw be toppled from the meta if it doesn't. If random crits are removed from casual play.
Maybe. But yeah,
that'd be like the most hilarious thing to me.
It's not really the biggest update in terms of content, but it did bring one of the most monumental things, items, and I feel like that's a very important milestone for TF2, as well as payload, even though the first map it introduced... Oh boy, Gold Rush. I'd say that was a mixed update, considering... I think Gold Rush, how bad it is alone, is enough to say this update was mixed. If you ask me.
I mean, Gold Rush isn't all that bad, but
fuck off! Gold Rush is awful. Fight me.
You want to know a payload map that's fucking awful?
Gold Rush.
Borneo. Borneo fucking sucks.
What? Are you telling me Borneo? What? Excuse me.
Every time I go on Borneo, I suffer humiliation and multiple deaths.
Then learn how to ridiculous. Bang it. You're bad.
No,
you're bad.
That's the pyro.
Borneo is so well designed. Okay, off fucking topic. Jesus Christ. Okay, Snooze. What's your community update? Shut up, you. Snooze. What's your community update?
My community. Okay, hold on. My community update is the. I forgot it because you two were screaming. Yeah, end of the line. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, how should we talk about end of the line?
Horrible.
It could have been the very end of the line of Team Fortress 2, as they say. Remember how it was hyped up to be this really big update, and then Valve kind of fucked it up?
Yeah.
They didn't fuck it. They Mick-fucked it.
They Mick-fucked it, but then was it really going to be that great of a community update? Anyway, like the community,
it really was. If the people who were working on that update had full reigns over that shit, they would have fucking put out a substantial fucking update.
But substantial as in quantity or quality? That's what I'm thinking.
Like
you really think
both, actually? Good? I think it would have been one of the greatest updates to TF2 if the end of the line team had full reigns on it.
The weapons that came from the Smithmas that followed it, weren't they supposed to originally be from end of the line?
They were supposed to have been
the Quickie Bomb.
They were all supposed to have been in the end of the line. In fact, here's the whole thing: those weapons, the snowplow map, not really the Ducks campaign. The Ducks was mainly just sort of like a joke thing in that short. But the short came out, you know, maybe some adjustments and balance changes like they did in Smithmas 14. It was meant to be a big update, and then they just basically made it into sort of like this campaign bullshit, which I think was kind of dumb, in all honesty. Like, I mean, they handled it. They handled the whole campaign, the community campaign idea a lot better with Invasion, which I'll talk about later. But like when they did end of the line, Valve botched it so horribly.
Yeah,
They really did.
Yeah, I think that's another great example of Valve not knowing what to do with community content half the time. But I mean, a lot of the focus, I feel, really was on that big end of the line cinematic, the winter gear, the pool party, the crossing guard. I don't know, and I mean, was it really going to be that monumentous of a community update? I don't know if I didn't ever even really saw the hype back then. Honestly, I was never really that hyped for end of the line. Maybe that's just because I'm grim at the community in general, but what do you think, Snooze?
I brought it up because it's the main, like, when people think of community updates, end of line usually is the first thing that pops into your head, right?
Yeah.
Like, when I say community, you say invasion.
Yeah. Huh? Invasion?
Yeah, exactly. So
End of the line?
yeah.
What are you trying to talk?
That was a joke.
So keep going, you dumbass.
Like, end of line, like, is the main, like, we done goofed update, really, I'd say. Besides Jungle Inferno, but
for both or just Valve though?
I'd say for Valve.
Like, do you think the community would have done good if they did it themselves?
Yeah, pretty much.
I just don't know. I don't know. I don't buy it. But I guess that's as far as we'll get on that one. Okay, Alexa, your Valve update.
Okay, so looking at the Valve update that I decided to talk about, I decided to talk about the Pyro update, and I don't fucking mean Jungle Inferno.
2008.
Which
chat.
one? There's like 5 of them.
I can hear the fucking the new plebeians in TF2 raging in the chat now. It's just like, oh, he's gonna talk about Jungle Inferno. Oh, you fucking disgusting piece of shit. You're like, no, fucking, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go way back. We're going back to 2008. It was good, okay?
I went further back.
The Pyro update.
Snooze went too far back.
Okay. So the Pyro update.
Okay, so the Pyro update, for those of you fuckers who don't know,
the 2008
was the 2008 one that Valve pushed out with with a handful of community things, but also mainly some big adjustments for everybody's favorite arsonist.
It added the best. It added the best map. Hold on. CTF Turbine.
They added Turbine and Fast Lane. They also added some new pyro weapons that everyone loves, like the flare gun and the back burner and the extinguisher.
No.
Everybody loves those. They also added a variety of pyro.
Remember the back burner on release? To aid in survivability, it grants the pyro an extra 50 health.
Yeah,
why not?
To be perfectly honest, I would still prefer that than the 100% Chris from behind, because that mechanic is still fucking bullshit.
It's not bullshit. It's just broken because it never works.
Shut up.
Properly.
This isn't Palance.
Yeah. At least you can kind of shoot a pyro with a gun, and you can't. Okay, but if you get within range of one. Yeah. Anyway, so there was a whole variety of things like that, and they also added in like a whole bunch of things, I believe, with the pyro update, as such as like air blast and things like that. That became a big thing with the pyro update, I believe, as well.
I don't think the pyro update was when air blast was introduced. It
was or close to around the pyro update is when it was introduced, but it mainly gave the pyro a lot more alternative options.
Actually, it says right here.
His kit.
By hitting the alt-fire key, the pyro is able to produce a blast of compressed air. So, yeah.
Compression blast?
This update brought air blast and flare gun.
Air blast.
These two things became some of the most core, integral, and iconic pyro attributes to this day. And that's all Valve. And you know what? I think that's another quality Valve update, but that's obviously back when they were still at the top of their game.
That was back in 2008 when TF2 was still brand new out of the oven. Portal 2 was being worked on, and we still had hope that Half-Life 3 existed.
Yeah.
Did we though? Did we ever?
I did.
Yes. At one point, I believe we did. But anyway, that's beside the point. But in terms of like an actual update, the Pyro update, the original Pyro update, not Jungle Inferno,
Yeah.
was still in my eyes probably one of the most integral parts
Yeah.
of TF2's history.
And the community part of it was shit. Turbine is shit, and Fastlane. I don't know if you like that map, but I think it's shit.
Well, in all fairness,
meh.
compared to the game modes that we have today, CTF at its initial part was actually utterly okay. But nowadays it sucks dick. But
it says
back
here,
then it was okay.
It says here, competitive teams and players have already popularized this one under Turbine. Fuck out of here.
Well, CTF was popular at some point. Just remember.
Oh yeah,
it's always been popular.
Thanks, community.
It's always been like popular. It's just been a
CTF is popular because it's the Call of Duty game mode that attracts new players who don't know any better. It's the Team Deathmatch. It's what people play when they don't want to actually go for an objective. Okay, your community update, Alexa.
Okay, so the update that I chose as my community update was basically the invasion update, and I'll tell you exactly why the invasion update. Because for someone like me, because this was one that I was present here for. I joined in slightly before Love and War came out, and when Invasion came out, it was this big update. There's a community update. There wasn't a lot in terms of like,
much
new weapons
green.
Yeah, there was a lot of green in it, but I thought it was a pretty good community update, and that they had handled it a lot better than End of the Line. Definitely a lot better than End of the Line, because of the fact that they kind of looked at themselves after they had the whole issue with fucking End of the Line and whatnot. They looked at themselves and said, okay, what do we need to do that makes this, what do we need to do to fucking do better about this shit?
Here's what they did. We are in the beam.
Shut up.
Yeah, but in all honesty, in all fairness and honesty, they did a fantastic job on Invasion, and they did. And as much as I kind of hated the fact that they didn't actually add any new weapons with new mechanics in it, I still kind of liked the ones that they added in. The Capper and the Bat Saber and all that whatnot. Of course, the Bat Saber's still expensive as hell. Like holy shit. But the friggin' then there's a whole variety of effects. But of course, the one thing that I've always kind of deeply liked and somewhat hated about the Invasion community update, though, is that it basically toppled Burning and Scorching as the prime worthwhile effect in TF2's trading community, because Nebula has to go for so much more now.
Well, that's because they're more rare.
Move over, Burning Team Captain. You've been left in the dust by the Nebula Captain Spaceman.
Jesus.
Well, that's because it's more rare. Like, not as many exist.
And now it's even
Burning's
more
been out for like
the whole,
Burning has been out for like 20,000 aeons, and
it's been out since Manconomy when they introduced the whole unusuals and everything. But I really like
Nebula's been out for 2016, not even 3 years yet.
But yeah, no, like I was saying earlier, like one of the concepts in TF2's development was to actually make a PvE mode or whatnot, or a PvE thing early on in its development before they released it. It was kind of translated into the man versus machine concept, but the basic idea was to make like the initial game like a PvE versus aliens and shit. So that's what the premise of the Invasion community update came from, was sort of like a mercs versus aliens thing. And the other thing I kind of didn't like about it was that they never made a game where you actually fought aliens. But hell, they did so well of a job with the fucking maps that they made and all the content and whatnot that they came out with. That I was kind of, I said, you know what? They did a lot better job with this. I'm willing to let it slide. And frankly, as far as a community update goes, the Invasion update was actually really good. I felt that it, was a good staple of what a community update should be at its minimum.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. It's just, it comes to the fact that I still haven't really noticed a significant community update that has actually done anything for TF2 gameplay-wise, which is what I think is the big crux of our discussion. It's all nice having new skins and new fun maps and whatever, like reskin maps, but like
what I want to see is a good, fat, juicy, meaty optimization.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Okay, calm down.
So we in general, it sounds really, like, we're kind of down the middle of the road. Like, I've been praising the Valve updates more, even though I don't always like Valve. Not that much, really. I'm not really on either side. But the community updates have been kind of... I just think they've been kind of weak, honestly. And I won't deny Invasion for its own thing was alright, but...
Smith 2016, lol.
But we can't rely on Invasion updates to keep TF2 alive. We can't rely on reskins, on campaigns. We need balance. We need optimization. We need better networking. Better coding,
networking.
And do you really think we can trust the community with that? So, like, we can move on to the last sort of 10 minutes or so where we just discuss generally. But I'd still trust Valve to get off their asses and like interact more than I would to say, hey, community, show us a couple of you who are good programmers. Okay,
I'm gonna save you real quick. I'm gonna save you from being wailed on the comments instead of Valve TF team. Just putting that out there.
Okay, yeah. I'd like.
So you can't say anything, comments.
Well, actually, no. I'd like Valve to get off
They're
their
gonna say
asses and give
something.
the TF team more support as well. Don't get me wrong.
True.
But the TF team isn't...
This team exists.
But still, the TF team isn't an excuse from criticism. The TF team needs to get off their asses, keep communicating like they said they would, even though they haven't been properly since the competitive update, aka Blue Moon. But do I think the community would be able to let the game survive based on their updates? No.
Not in a Blue Moon.
Not at all. Alexa?
Yeah, I still think, and I kind of see where you're coming from there, but I still think that some moderate level of communication between Valve and the community would, and maybe more or less
we want moderate communication.
Yeah, I think with both ends of the community and everything, and frankly, if we could just get, instead of it being like, so Valve, instead of having to just like, slave away at their whatever update they're making and then nothing to the community whatsoever, like saying nothing, they could just go to the community and say, okay, we're going to do a content pack where we're working on this update and we're going to just push about, let's say, a couple cases with like 13 hats each. Go vote for what you want on the workshop, and the piece of shit with the highest votes gets fucking put in. Okay,
yay, more hats
or whatnot. Maybe hats, maybe some weapon skins, things like that, whatever that they want to do. Just something new to kind of tie the community by, at least until the next update comes out. All I'm saying is just kind of, there should be more communication with Valve in regards to better community updates.
Here's what I think. Here's what I think they should do. I think the Valve hats and weapon skins are much worse than the community ones. So here's what I think they should do. They should give community the hats and weapon skins, like
they
kind of full reign of
exactly. They did
but
that
here's
exactly.
Here's the thing.
Two of the working cases.
Yeah.
Cool, but Valve still had a couple stinkers in there. And I think Valve should stop worrying about cases and stuff like that.
Exactly.
The community has that covered. They should focus on the great, big, meaty, juicy, big, fat coding.
Calm down now. And
of the
actually,
game.
yeah, because hats have become so ingrained in TF2's culture, we can't get by without having 10 plus hats every fucking update. And
every
that's
month, really?
With the code even more. Every update, I said. And it's so infuriating because weapons balancing should be paramount, but clearly hats and weapon skins and cases and campaigns and contracts are taking the forefront right now, and I really don't think that sets a good precedent for where the game is going, especially right now since we don't know what the fuck is going on.
Well, right, and I certainly don't disagree with that. I do think that there should be some weapons optimizations and updates and things like that.
But do you trust the community to do that? That's the crux of this.
I trust the community. I trust the community, and I trust Valve to communicate and kind of discuss with each other about what we want and come to a conclusion. At least in a more agreeable manner.
Let's say, like Invasion, the community was quid pro quo in charge. The community was in charge, like they were for Invasion. Would you trust the community to be able to put, like, perfectly balance, like, say, at least 4 weapons and provide good optimization for the 14-year-old code of this game?
I certainly think that with as many content developers as there are for this game, I'm very certain that there might be a good handful of individuals that know exactly what they're doing and could probably do that.
But
Yeah.
for programmers, other than Sigsev, I can't think of any good programmers off the top of my head. That's not to insult any of you who might be watching who are good programmers and are just not well known. If you are, then power to you. But Sigsev managed to code his own air blast hitboxes because those aren't in the game. That shit is... You've just got to watch the kind of shit he does to show off how buggy TF2 is at the core. That takes proper fucking skill. And he doesn't get paid for that shit. It's not doing it for a job. I wouldn't be surprised if he would get hired by the TF team if they could. But, you know, it's like that's one guy out of a fan base of a couple 100,000 players.
43,000.
Yeah, but that doesn't
Well,
automatically say that there would be more people or a whole multitude of people that could do the same thing. I mean, you don't just because there's like just one guy just like, oh well, you know, this is the only fucker that can do it, so you know, fuck it.
I'm not saying he's the only one who can do it, but he's the only one who's been able to show himself to do it, and it's the fact that the community's still so fucking segregated into these different kind of...
The community's pretty scattered on a lot of issues right now because it's been controversial update after controversial update.
Exactly. I don't
Valve
trust
did
the
a
community
step in the right
to
direction.
agree.
But I think that, you know, I kind of have hope that the community can kind of just like get together and look at this and look at what we need and just be like, just go to Valve and just say like, look, you know, we'd like to do a community update and we'd like to take, like, let's say we'd like to decide on some things and whatnot, or get some input on some balancing of the weapons or whatnot, get some feedback to Valve, and then kind of, you know, go from there. You know, it's like what they did with the balance changes back in June. They threw out the proposed balance changes early for a majority of the weapons because they wanted to get some community feedback on them, because there were weapons in that mix that, you know, were universally decided by the community as either troublesome, difficult to deal with, or just bad in general. There were some weapons that, you know, there had been some issues for some time that the community had known about, so they were trying to sort of like make sure that they were balancing it in ways that wasn't going to affect things negatively. And I feel like if we could kind of do the same as a community with Valve on a more constant basis, we could probably do a lot better job and a lot, you know, more efficient of a job of balancing the weapons that need to be balanced. You know, the whole thing, you know, it's like the whole thing, you know, compare what they did with the panic attack recently. They made it a viable side grace as a shotgun. Compare what they did with that than what they did with the Phlogisinator back in Tough Break without any, you know, warning or preemptive thing any whatsoever. You know, they fucking buffed the living shit out of the Phlogisinator. I could tell you that it was like one of the most used weapons because the prices on the community marketplace for TF2, I saw a strange Phlogisinator go up from like $1.70 to like $20. Ridiculous.
What's that in real money?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, real money, or Steam Wallet money, basically.
No, what's that in real money?
$20. $20 is probably
US
around
dollars.
15 quid or so.
Yeah,
Okay,
I forget that I'm talking to two Englishmen who don't know what the US dollar.
So we're coming up to the 1 hour mark, and that's probably a good length of time actually for people who are wanting to sit and watch. But like, I think the kind of closing thing I want to talk about briefly is, so if again, this whole idea of letting the community do an update, would it be a handful of representatives of like the top people of the community, or is it going to be the community as a whole? Which are you getting at, Alexa? That's what I'm wondering.
I feel like it should be kind of like a mixture of both. Like you have these people. You
look at you being the middleman. Congratulations.
Okay, yeah, go on. Yeah, let him speak.
Okay.
Let him speak.
So like with what we have with the representative thing, you know, we have an individual who plays the game a lot more casually. We have an individual who plays the game competitively, and then we have an individual that does it both, and maybe a couple more individuals that are sort of in between that scale and whatnot. We all get together or whatnot, or community representatives or whatnot, and we as a community vie to them about certain things that should and should not be done. They debate amongst themselves and reach an appropriate compromise that works, that they feel would work for both sides.
What's Hazando Godzilla's got to do with the entire balance of the game? Like, if you listen to the entire community, half of the players like are, you know, kind of shit. So, you know, if you balance
Well-
for that community, like if you're balancing for the
It
whole
always
community,
comes back to
let's
this
say,
shit.
Look. What I'm saying is, if we could communicate, if we could have a group of people, or at least a general way for the community to better communicate with Valve, and Valve to better communicate with the community about balance changes, about new content, about new things to add into the game, then and the community has basically a steadship on that with oversight from Valve to make sure that we don't put something fucking retarded in, like friggin' PLR higher tower,
Oh god.
then you
I'll
know
give you that.
we could probably do a lot better job of keeping this game updated instead of leaving it so content starved. It all just hinges on better communication, and that's what we need.
I don't know. When you've got a community that puts people like Delphi at the top of popularity, that really sends really bad flags about what the community in general has at heart, and that really concerns me. Like, if
I mean,
this representative idea, rather than just being a full-on mob rule thing, I could see that as some kind of compromise. Like, have some stand-up people who know what they're talking about to represent the community's interests to work with Valve. Okay, I can understand that. But, like, if we brought it down to brass tacks, who do you trust? Who would you trust more with TF2, Valve or community? A straight one or the other, which would it be? And I'd have to say Valve.
I'd honestly have to say community, because Valve has not proven to me that they can, at this current point in time, that they're making viable enough, or at least okay enough adjustments with some of these weapons that they're adjusting like they are.
And don't get me wrong,
that
I'm not
really
completely on
benefit
Valve's
both
side
sides of the
either.
community.
I'm not completely on Valve's side either, but yeah.
And I'm not going to get into the whole casual versus competitive thing again. But like I said, there's key differences between these two modes, and trying to balance things strictly in a competitive basis can sometimes, and has in some cases, broken them completely in casual play. Because in casual, you have no class limits. It's a 12v12. And there's no like stopwatch time or any of the other elements that are in a competitive setting. It is literally a save for whatever objective that there is if your team decides to play the fucking objective. And even that can be variable.
that's
It's basically a 12v12 free-for-all. And multiple people, like I said, it harkens back to that multiplicity factor thing that I've mentioned a few times talking with you. Multiple people can use the same weapon. Yeah, multiple people can use the same weapon. So if one weapon's hard to deal with in a casual setting, imagine what having to deal with 2 or 3 copies of that weapon does.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we'll just cut away from that then. Snooze, Valve or community?
Valve.
Pretty simply.
Yeah, just like like as we've been
probably...
over for about as we've been over for the past like the past couple hours. Hours, yes, we've been over this for 6 hours. So just loop this video 6 times in a row. You'll get it. So
we've been at this for 3 days. Please send help.
I probably would say I'm more in the middle but
look at you, Valve or community, Valve or community,
okay,
Valve or community,
Valve. But if we split away from it a bit, I'm more in the middle because I don't trust Valve that much. But I would still say Valve more. But are you like strongly Valve?
I feel so. Yeah. I hate the community, so I mean, like,
so
you are the community.
You do still feel Valve.
I hate myself, so.
So you do still feel you do still feel Valve should do better, but you still think they're doing better than the community. Yeah.
Like, I trust Valve with the game more, but I feel like the community's doing a better job.
I think one way we can all settle on it is we would trust Valve with the balance, but the community with the aesthetic of the game. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, okay, okay, like if the community has the same people who said the ambassador should be nerfed, I don't feel like like it goes to like a the Valve or TF team, whatever you want to call them, like it goes with like a molten core kind of thing with World of Warcraft. Like the TF team isn't the best at the game, so they don't really know balance. So that's the one thing you could say with balance that could be handed to the community. But then but then again, you have lots of bias in the community,
Exactly.
and the TF team doesn't have any bias because they're not quite good at the game, really.
Exactly. I would trust unbiased but not great at the game over alright at the game but biased as fuck.
Like,
Honestly.
my chair's dying. I need to get a new chair. But what's his name? What's that engineer who does Prolander?
Uncle Dane?
Uncle Dane?
No.
Mecha?
No.
No idea. Sigafu?
Yes.
Okay, what about him?
He's biased.
Because of Prolander.
No, he's biased because he's an engineer main and he hates spies. So that's the one reason that the ambassador got nerfed, because, Sigafu and his biased opinions.
Oh boy,
mean,
taking a real
then-
snipe there. Jesus. Right, let's see. We've just hit the 1 hour mark, so I think we're gonna leave it for there. We got some really good discussion out of this, I think, though. We actually got some pretty good disagreements going on. So
we had some actual
Yeah.
fights and not
Yeah.
some circle jerking.
Calm
You
the fuck
fuckers
up.
in the comments.
Shut up! Don't piss to the comments.
Okay,
So-
Bradley.
Bro! No.
Okay, Mecha Rex.
Stop sniping at people! Okay. Right. Okay.
I'm a sniper main. What do you want?
No, you're not. This has been the first episode of Minty's Monty. I hope you've all enjoyed me and these two lovable dumbass idiots up beside me. And, yeah, let us know in the comments, would you trust Valve or community more? And respond to anything in the discussion you feel like you want. Shut up, you. Just respond to any points you'd like if you have anything you'd like to talk about. We'll probably all check the comments here and there once I've got a thumbnail. So, yeah, this has been Minty's Monty, the eagerly eccentric Elixir Zodiria, and the bashfully beautiful Snooze.
Aww.
And we shall all see you next time. 3, 2, 1.
Ah.
Bye.
See you later, fucking chinos.